Hey y'all, we're back again. Look, Tom's got a jacket on.
Yeah, it's cold in here.
It is kind of cold in here.
Yeah.
I think it only got up to 52 degrees today. That was the high. So in Florida, that's pretty cold. I know some of you are just like, man, shut up. It's like minus 52. But
it's 64 in here, man. In this fucking house. That's fucking freezing for us.
I like it.
Yeah.
I'm quite comfortable.
The cats love it. Pookie running around like she sounds like a whole fucking herd of buffaloes.
I know. I woke up at like 4 or 5 in the morning. And it's like
house. She's like, yeah, she loves it.
Seriously, for a little bitty 10-pound cat, maybe 10 pounds, she sounds like a whole bunch of like big fat people running around.
I don't even think she's 10 pounds.
She might not be.
No.
Well, no, we took her to the vet. I think she was 9 pounds, but that was a while back. I think she's a little bit chubbier since then.
Yeah, maybe. You're fat. Yes,
She's not fat. Shut up. Don't tell her that.
Okay, all right.
You're going to give her a complex.
You're going to get a complex? Okay.
She's like, I'm not fat. Fuck you.
She doesn't know what I'm saying.
Yes, she does.
Okay.
She probably doesn't care. She's like, screw you, daddy.
She's like, fat's good.
She's like, yeah, that's right. Check out my pouch.
I think she does know what we're saying a lot of times, though.
Yeah, she does.
I'll say something and then she'll do things like,
yeah,
okay.
She reacts the way that you would if she knew
if
what
she
you were
understood
saying.
about half of what you're saying.
Yeah, she gets it. Yeah, so just like I promised yesterday, we're talking about the Blob, the 80s remake. And I have to say, because goddamn, the 80s were a really good time for awesome remakes of 50s movies.
Yeah.
Right? They had The Thing and The Fly, and like there was some other ones where everybody was just kind of like, oh, well, we like that cheesy ass idea like from the 50s sci-fi movie, but let's like gore it up and like make it way, way better.
Well, the directors and the producers grew up in the 50s, so now they were in charge. They could remake that movie.
See, and if you're going to do a remake, I would rather you did that. Like, take something that was a great idea, but it wasn't executed all that well, either because, like, it was the wrong person doing it, or they didn't have the budget, or whatever.
Or they didn't miss they missed the twist.
Yeah, or something. But
like the original Thing is not like the book.
Yeah.
Carpenter's Thing is closer to the book, which is was it Who Goes There? Which is kind of, that's where the Thing came from.
Yeah. But yeah, so this one, I mean, obviously, now the 1958 Blob is fun. I will say that.
Yeah.
But
Steve McQueen.
Yeah, with Steve McQueen in it playing a 40-year-old high school student.
Yeah.
Which that's
30-year-old.
That's fine. They did that a lot back then, so I'll give it a pass. Right. Like I said, have you ever seen some of those cheesy 50s monster movies like Teenagers from Outer Space, and they're all like
35.
They're all like 35 years old. Maybe they're not that old, but they all look that old. They do. I'm just like, even I saw it on MST, and they're just like really old teenagers from outer space. Holy shit. But yeah, so
some of those movies we saw, though, I recognized where they were filmed out in California when I was a kid, back when that shit was still just fucking open fields. And there was 60s, mostly 60s, and they'd have some 60s girls in there, and they still, in the early 60s, they still kind of dressed like the 50s. It's kind of funny because you could tell that they're fucking 20. But they're kind of dressed like old women. And they kind of act a little bit like old women.
Yeah.
But then they try to be fucking sexy and slutty. It's funny to see like a slutty. And they look old. Or they're giving old vibes, but they're not old.
Yeah.
And they're acting more mature than they should.
Yeah, it's more a vibe thing than a looks thing. Yeah, it's hard to put your finger on.
Yeah, weird times.
But so I was listening to something about this earlier where they were talking about when they were talking about redoing the Blob, because they said, look, like the idea for the Blob, because honestly prior to that, like in the early 1950s, and you had all of these kind of sci-fi big bug monster movies and that kind of stuff, and they're like, honestly, even though the Blob, the 1958 version, was like really cheesy, they're like, behind that was a great idea, because this is an alien form which hadn't really been seen in the movies before. It was just a blob, like a sludge. You couldn't reason with it. It wasn't like a monster. It didn't care about you. It was just kind of like came to the earth, and it was almost kind of like a natural disaster where it was just kind of like eating people.
It was an accurate portrayal of an alien creature. It was an amoeba, basically.
Yeah.
A space amoeba.
Right. So what they were saying when they were talking about developing the 80s version was like, that's a great fucking idea for a monster, so let's make it, kind of like what we liked about the 50s one, but make it like much scarier, much gorier. I mean, because obviously the 50s version wasn't all that gory. Now, I had forgotten too, the guy that directed this, Chuck Russell, and I had forgotten too that the screenwriter on this was Frank motherfucking Darabont. Yeah. I forgot that he was a screenwriter on this. So him and Chuck Russell met when they were doing Hell Night in 1981. That was the Linda Blair slasher movie. And I think they wrote Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, which was like the other really good one. And I mean, Frank Darabont, obviously, I mean, he went on to do, most famous usually for doing like all the Stephen King adaptations of The Mist. Obviously, he did the fucking Shawshank Redemption. Did he get an Oscar for that? I kind of feel like he got nominated. So he obviously knows how to write a fucking movie. And watching this movie again, because I saw this back in, I might have seen it in the theater, I think, because I saw a lot of movies in 1988
I never
in
saw
the
it
theater.
in the theater. I only saw it in VHS.
But I remember this being all over Fangoria, and I have to say, watching it again last night, the special effects in this still look really good.
I'm glad to have seen it, and glad to have seen it the way it was intended to be seen, because it didn't look that good on VHS. It was a good movie.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that the special effects were as good as they were. I mean, it's a high budget movie. You know, I'd probably put it there technically up there with Gremlins, maybe a little bit more. It was around that same time, wasn't it? Maybe a little bit.
No,
after.
Gremlins was 84.
Yeah,
was 4 years before this.
4 years after.
So this came out 4 years after
yeah,
Gremlins.
4 years after. So, but yeah, it's almost Spielbergian in its fucking scope. It's a good movie, real good.
Yeah, it's still based around a small town. It's weird because they shot this in Louisiana, even though it's supposed to be. The Wikipedia page says it's supposed to be California. I thought it was supposed to be Colorado. I could be wrong about that. It's like a small ski town.
Yeah.
But I thought it was Colorado. I could be wrong. Maybe it was supposed to be California. But they shot it in Louisiana anyway. But they actually the town that they found. There was a scene, I don't know if they did this on purpose, like when they were scouting locations, but there was a scene, like the beginning of the scene, where they show this small town, and it looks like it's all abandoned, like nobody lives there. And then they scroll across, and then you see, the reason that it's abandoned is everybody's at the football game.
Yeah.
They said that, and it's this great, like, iconic opening shot where they're scrolling across from, like, a cemetery to, like, a football stadium. And that was in the script written like that, but they actually found a town where that was the case. Like, they didn't change anything, you know what I mean? So I thought that was, like, really funny. But that's, like, a great scene, like, establishing, you know, this kind of small town, and, you know, it's just kind of this sense of foreboding. So you get your characters, Meg, kind of like the main character, I guess, and Brian Flagg. And another thing I thought, too, was because this was Frank Darabont, I thought that he named that character Flagg because of Randall Flagg, you know, from The Stand. Apparently he didn't. It was just like a total accident. But there are other homages to The Stand in this, though, so I don't know. I find that hard to believe, but okay. He says he didn't, so there you go. Kevin Dillon and his amazing mullet are in this, and
I gotta say something though before you touch.
What's that?
He actually rides around a little, some kind of split single. Looks like a Royal Enfield or maybe like a Triumph Tiger or something. It's hard to
I
tell.
think it was a Triumph Tiger.
Triumph Tiger. Okay. Duke a ride. He fucking lights up the rear tire and does a fucking 180 on his fucking leg and shit. He was. It's a small bike. It's easy to manhandle that bike, but I was impressed. He was competent on that motorcycle. That was him that did that stunt. I was looking.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, where he's doing a 180?
Yeah.
Off his fucking leg from a standstill. You got to get the hang of that. And, he did it.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
But we were talking a little bit.
Duke a ride.
Yeah.
Which, they didn't have. So a lot of guys would puss out and they'd have a fucking stunt double do that. But he did it.
Well, sometimes they want to do it, but the production company, especially on bigger budget movies, like, you were absolutely not doing that because we can't insure you.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
But there's that, too.
That's a trick that is not a moving trick. You could do it in place. So maybe that's why they let him do it.
Yeah.
It's not like catching air off a fucking ramp, you know what I mean? Which he does later on, but that's got to be a stunt double that did that.
Yeah, because that's kind of how they build up his character. He's like jumping the bridge at the beginning, and then like he falls off.
Yeah.
And that's when he kind of like first sees the bum who ends up being the first victim of the blob.
He dumps that fucking tiger, Nowadays, you'd never dump that bike. That bike's fucking worth a mint now. Challenge you to find a fucking tiger, a trap tiger. They're worth a lot of money, but he dumps it right in the fucking dirt.
Well, back then
They weren't worth as much. Yeah.
But I was gonna say though, we were talking about his magnificent mullet in the movie. I'm not sure. I heard, I don't know if this is true or not, but both him and Shawnee Smith, who plays Meg, they both are wearing hair extensions in this. So that's not entirely all their own hair, because she kind of has like it's really kind of big and sprayed in the front, and then it's like long in the back. And I totally remember girls having that haircut in like 87 or 88.
Guess they couldn't bring themselves to actually grow that haircut out. I remember
even though that was very stylish for the 1980s. Like I said, I don't think anybody really batted an eye.
If you were like a Winger fan and you liked fucking John Bon Jovi and fucking you were getting fucking, getting slammed in the back of a fucking Grand National, that was the hair the cut you had. Gramthars will fucking tell you all about it. Fucking, we went to school with those girls. You had to have an IROC Z with a big old bird on the hood.
Yeah, I remember a couple dudes having those.
Yeah.
Danny Rolling Ghostface says the dude that got melted by toxic waste in RoboCop plays a prick really good in this film. Yeah, he's in it.
He's in it.
Not a huge part, but yeah, he's in it.
What was that character's name in RoboCop? Was his name Wesley? I think his name was Wesley, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. We were trying to remember.
I remember that guy. But there's a cool scene where he fucking pulls up the gas station on that. I think it was a fucking Ninja's GPC, and he jumps out with that fucking MAC-10 and starts threatening the damn cash register and try to shoot through the bulletproof glass. He had that yellow cigarette. Throws it in the gasoline. Fucking that was like some shit you could actually do in Detroit. As Gramthars. That was Detroit. That's the way it was. I was living down there.
This is RoboCop we're talking about.
RoboCop,
not the Blob.
No.
He doesn't do that in the Blob.
No, he doesn't do it in the Blob. He did it in RoboCop.
Yeah. He also says, the best kill in this, that's a lot of competition in that area, I have to say, has to be the loud-talking moviegoer who gets gripped up into the ceiling and dies just saying, I know, I kind of, like, cheered at that, I have to admit, because I fucking hate it when people talk in movies, and I'm like, God damn, I wish the fucking Blob would come and, like, pull those people up into the ceiling. Honestly, I have to say, God, there's so many good kills in this. The trash compactor, or the garbage disposal kill, fucking great. That still looks fantastic, I think. Because I don't like the garbage disposal either.
It's got excellent practical effects in this movie.
Yeah.
Excellent.
The Paul getting killed, like where he just gets kind of sucked up like that with his arms out like that, and then she pulls ones of his arms off, like it squishes off. Candy Clark's character, the waitress, which was kind of sad because she was like a good character. She gets killed in the fucking phone booth. Yeah. After she sees like the cop like floating on the outside who's supposed to have a date with her. That's one thing about Frank Darabont. He is absolutely, I mean, if you've seen The Mist, he is absolutely not afraid to kill off every motherfucker in the fucking movie. Well, he wanted to do what he did with this. He was kind of trying to set up like the sort of like football jock characters as kind of like the heroes toward the beginning. And then, spoiler alert, they get killed like pretty quickly. Yeah. And it ends up actually being Meg, the sort of cheerleader girl. She lives, and then it's sort of like the juvenile delinquent character, who's actually a good guy. Yeah.
He's just like a Fonzie.
Yeah, they just like, he's just like perceived as being a bad guy because he doesn't trust authority, even though in this movie he absolutely was right not to.
He was kind of a proto-goth character in a way.
Kinda.
Yeah, goth fucking, but it was more like 50s. He's more like a 50s greaser.
Yeah. Which, like I said, that was a big thing in the 80s. There was like a lot of 50s nostalgia.
50s nostalgia. Right. In reality, it would have been the punk rock kid or the fucking goth kid. That's who that would have been.
And I like that. I like that they made him kind of prickly at the beginning, but he was still a good guy at heart. He was just a little bit of a troublemaker, and the cops didn't like him and shit like that. But his mistrust of authority actually ended up saving people because he figured out what was going on. Amon Naguer says, I thought that Rob Zombie was going to remake this movie. I heard that too, and thank God that fucking didn't happen.
He'd have ruined it.
I mean, I love you, Rob Zombie. I do, but
he's got to stay at what he's good at. What he's good at is his rejects type stuff.
Stay in your lane. Yeah. I can't see. Yeah, he's good at that kind of stuff.
Right.
Like real yucky, like rednecky horror. Like he's good at that, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre type shit.
Yeah.
Don't try to do.
He'd probably be really good at Hills Have Eyes. He could probably really be good at that.
Yeah, he's good at that kind of stuff. Yeah. I really don't see him being able to do a sort of alien sci-fi. I don't know. Even though this movie, like I said, it ended up being like super dark. I really like the way even a lot of really likable characters, like I said, the waitress played by Candy Clark, they kind of set up like a little bit of a romance developing between her and the sheriff, and she's really nice and sweet and helpful and everything. And then bam, she ends up getting killed too. Like pretty much everybody ends up getting killed. Yeah. Also, a little kid ends up getting killed. And it's funny because I heard that the producers were like, you absolutely can't kill any children on this film, and they were just like, fuck you, we're doing it anyway. So they didn't kill Meg's little brother, but they killed Meg's little brother's friend.
This is a good time for me to talk about what you just talked about. All right, the reason why you wouldn't want Rob Zombie to redo this film is because 50s sci-fi horror has a kind of a good-natured element to it. It's not, even if it's dark, even if it's got kids that's getting killed in it, there's something kind of positive about it. There's something. Yeah. There's something kind of not positive. Positive. What's another word I'm talking about?
Optimistic.
Optimistic. Yeah. It has an optimistic side to it, which kind of alleviates the fucking trauma that you see happening in the movie. You know that it's all going to work out fine. You know what I mean? That's the way the 50s sci-fi horror did. And Rob Zombie doesn't have that. All right. If that's not his style. His style is fucking doom and gloom, fucking grotesque. He needs to. If he's going to redo another movie besides Devil Rejects, I'm gonna say Hills Have Eyes. He'd probably kick ass on that.
He should do a remake of Gator Bait.
Yeah, he could probably do that.
Or like he's more like, or Herschel Gordon Lewis or something like that. He seems like that seems like more his style. That's more his speed.
Oh, that's the one with the town that comes back to get revenge. Yeah. The redneck town. Yeah.
Yeah, just he could do like Blood Feast or something like that, or 2000 Maniacs.
I'd really like to see Hills Have Eyes or The Car.
They already remade The Hills Have Eyes.
They did it?
Rob Zombie didn't remake it.
No, but I'd like to see Rob Zombie's Hills Have Eyes. I wouldn't mind seeing Rob Zombie's The Car.
Yeah.
He could probably do really good with that.
Yeah, that could be super gory.
Yeah, which is kind of like a proto-Christine in a way. Car comes out of the fucking ground from hell and chases dudes down out in the desert. He'd probably do real good with that. Rob Zombie would probably kick ass with that. I'd like to see Rob Zombie redo Omega Man.
I don't know. That's treading into some gray area.
He wrote a fucking badass song about it.
Well, that doesn't mean that he can make a badass movie about it.
I think he could.
Those are two completely different mediums.
I'd like to see his script. You know. He can't do a damn Halloween edition to it. Remember what he did to Halloween?
Yeah.
He can't do
Some
that.
people like that. I didn't like it. I didn't like it.
No.
I didn't like it. I didn't need to see Michael Myers as a kid and he got abused and all that. It's like it demystified the character and makes him less scary. I don't like it. And I've talked about that before. Jake Adams says the 1988 Blob didn't fuck around. It absolutely did not. Honestly, yeah, and I think that's what I liked so much about this. It has the fun and the personality and the sort of, like you said, optimism a little bit, although it is a lot more cynical than the 50s one, because one change that they did make, the 1958 Blob, the Blob was just a straight up alien. It just like fell to the earth in a meteor. Now it does in this one too, but during the course of the movie you find out that it's actually not an alien, but it's actually like a bioweapon that was developed on Earth, and they've been like keeping it in a satellite, and it just like crashed. So it's actually man-made.
Yeah, I forgot about that angle.
Yeah, so this is actually like a more cynical take on it in the sense that it's not just like an alien being that comes there like randomly.
I liked it better in the original that it was an alien being that came in a damn meteor. In a rock.
I mean,
that's likely. That kind of shit happens.
I get why they changed it. I mean, the 80s was a lot more cynical time than the 50s.
Yeah.
And I think they wanted to kind of get across that a little bit of that like anti-authority or like a little bit conspiracy theory type vibe to it, because that was kind of popular. It was like, They Live and all that kind of stuff. So
it sounds crazy. You wouldn't think it'd be possible or plausible that an alien amoeba could land on the Earth in a meteor. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
There's been, they believe material is exchanged between Mars and Earth over the billions of years. It has exchanged many times through asteroid impacts. Things hit Mars and boom, blasts it off into space, reaches escape velocity and lands here on Earth. It's plausible that biological material is transferred that way. could be that life came from Mars and was brought here, like cross contamination.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you had a big enough rock, and you had an amoeba in there, it might survive for billions of years in fucking suspended animation. You know, if it's a real primitive organism, it could land on the Earth. Most of it would burn up, but it doesn't get very hot in the middle, and then that shit could, the rock, and it could come out and get you. It's plausible. It's plausible. Unlikely, or it would have happened already. Because, you know, the Earth's pretty old. But it could be that life started in it somewhere else, and it fucking Earth's life was basically contamination that was brought here. That's another possibility. You know, just when it was microbes, just microbes.
Yeah.
I think it's a fucking excellent idea.
Yeah, and like I said, really ahead of its time, a monster that hadn't been done before. So I think that it was, I mean, with such a good idea as that, I think it was good that they chose in the 80s to like reboot it, because that is, and I was listening to, you know, something that kind of did a deep dive on this, and they were talking about like all the producers and writers behind it, and they were just like, we just loved the idea of this monster that didn't, it wasn't even like evil. It just didn't give a shit about you.
Just an animal.
It was just like, it was just like a microbe that just wanted to eat so it could get bigger. It wasn't nothing personal.
And in the 50s, that's a fucking futuristic idea.
Yeah.
Because in the 50s, in alien space movies and shit, alien monster movies, were dudes in stupid suits that came down a flying saucer.
Or forced perspective, big bugs.
Yeah, big bugs. Well, that's not alien, though.
Yeah, that's true.
But alien shit was always just some man in a fucking spacesuit.
Who could be reasoned with, usually.
Yeah, hit you with a...
To some degree.
He wanted to conquer your planet. He had a ray gun. Big fucking deal. All right. What's fucking far more plausible is like the Blob or the Thing.
Much scarier, too.
Much scarier, yeah.
Because there was nothing you could do about that.
No.
And honestly, that kind of like shows... You know, the 50s when they did that a little bit, but they couldn't go too far because they wanted to like keep it a little bit lighthearted, I guess. This one went a lot darker with it in the sense that pretty much everybody, well, not everybody, but most of the characters get killed, like even the ones that you think are going to be main characters, and a lot of the town gets destroyed like before they figure out, you know, how to destroy the monster.
Another one that was kind of plausible was Slither.
Yeah, that's true.
That was kind of like a combination of the Thing and the Blob. But that's not an old idea. That's a pretty modern movie. That was 2000s, I think. Slither.
Yeah, 2006. I want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like Slither.
Yeah.
Jake Adams says, yeah, this one had the big swerve of who the main character was going to be, gave that feeling of anyone can get eaten. Yeah, and that's absolutely what they wanted to get across. I think they were trying to do like a Psycho type of thing where, you know, you have this big star in it and then halfway through the movie she gets fucking killed. And so they were trying to set up, particularly Paul, I think, the character of Paul, the football guy that was taking Meg out on the date. They wanted to set up, you know, they had the whole scene in the pharmacy where he's trying to buy condoms and all this other kind of stuff. And then they had like his rapey friend that was out there molesting a girl that had passed out. That was fucking funny. I had forgotten about that. He was out there with that chick, right, in the car. And they were drinking in the car. And I didn't know like whether he gave her something, like roofied her, because she fell asleep, right? And then he's like, oh, you know, are you awfully hot? And he starts, he's going to like totally to feel up her titty. Yeah. But the funniest thing about that scene, I mean, the scene's not funny nowadays because now it's kind of horrifying. But like he opened up the trunk and he had a whole fucking bar in there.
Yeah.
He had a whole bar and he had a whole bunch of like class rings like on chains. So he could just like, he was running all these girls at the same time. I'm like, oh, they were neighborhoods about that type of dude nowadays. Which is like super funny. But he gets eaten too. Yeah. But
it was funny though. It was just supposed to be.
It was funny.
It was just an extreme stereotype of the dude in high school that you knew that was like that.
Yeah, like the football player jock type of dude that was just like running through all the.
Kinda.
He was in the movie. He was
a football player.
Yeah.
He was
like a jock.
Okay, he was a jock. Yeah. He was the one that was trying to run all them fucking girls. Thought he was fucking Casanova.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they definitely do try to set up the character of Paul, not the rapey guy, but his friend. They do try to set him up as like him being, you know, they're the ones that find the hobo that has the thing on his arm, and them and Flag, you know, the punk guy with the mullet, they bring him to the hospital. And then that's a great effect too. Like when they go in there and you know, Shawnee Smith like sees the bum like laying in the hospital room, and there's like something moving under the blanket. She's like, "What the fuck is that?" And then he just goes over there and moves it, and then like the whole dude's been like fucking dissolved, and it's just like it looks so fucking good. And then like basically the blob like gets out and eats Paul, like I said, and it looks good. They used I guess it's like methyl cellulose, which is that shit that they put in milkshakes, like to thicken them. It's like this real slippery shit. Yeah. They used that, and apparently for that scene where that football player Paul gets killed, they basically just like stretched it for real, like over his face. So that is him in there. He said it felt like being waterboarded. Yeah. So they pulled it over his face, and it looks fucking great. Yeah. And so then his arms are out like that, and like I said, she's trying to like help him, and like just pulls his arm out the thing and shit like that. And
dissolve you.
I mean,
eat you alive.
I mean, can you imagine like and like I said, the special effects in this still so good. And I love like the scene in the diner where the one guy, George, gets pulled into, you know, something bad's gonna happen. It's like the garbage disposal gets all backed up. And the waitress, like Candy Clark, she's all kind of like, "Oh man, shit, what the hell?" And then she says to like the other guy working there, George, she's like, "Hey, can you like take a look at that or whatever?" And he's like trying to plunge it, and he's just like, "Man, what the fuck?" And then you know he's gonna stick his hand in there. And you're watching the movie, being like, "Please don't stick your hand in there," but he does, and he sticks his hand in there, and he just gets pulled into the garbage disposal like head first. Yeah, it looks so good. I had forgotten how good that effect looked, and because I was watching it last night, I'm like, God damn. Yeah. I couldn't even figure out how they did it. Yeah. They actually had the actor, the stuntman, like do a handstand in the sink. And then I think they had like some kind of weird mannequin or something that would crush like down to the size. So they did it. I mean, obviously they did it practically. 1988, they did have some access to CGI, and I think there were some minor CGI. Like I think when the blob freezes, because that's its weakness, is cold. I think that was in the original one too, right? Yeah. So when it freezes to like crystals, they used CGI to like put like little glittery, like purple, to make it like look cooler. But I think that's the only CGI they used in this.
Freezing is how they explained it got here across the fucking vastness of space.
Yeah.
Because it was inside a meteor frozen.
Yeah.
It could just survive forever like that in hibernation. So it could just go across the universe billions of miles, you know, billions of years, and, you know, survive.
Yeah.
So they had to keep that.
Mike says this film is basically a chase movie. Yeah, I mean, it's not a real complicated. I like it because it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. It has that 80s Spielbergian small town kind of thing. Like everyone's a character. You know, everyone's likable. You don't really want to see anybody get killed necessarily, except for that dude in the movie theater. Fuck him. who kept like talking. But he does get killed, so that's happy. But everybody else, you don't really want to see him get killed. So everyone's just kind of likable people, and they're basically just trying to like get the hell away from whatever the hell this is, and they're trying to like figure out what it is. There's like the chase through the sewer. Kevin Dillon rides that motorcycle through the big sewer, like he goes up on the wall, like over the blob and shit like that. It's just, I had really just forgotten how good this movie is. It's just very, very entertaining. It doesn't have any slow spots. Special effects look great. It's super gory. It's
good
just
score.
It has a good score. It's just
Acting's
super it's super it's not bleak necessarily, because it has like a more or less happy end. Well, kind of. It has more or less a happy ending, but a lot of people get killed. Like, and people you don't think or you don't want to get killed absolutely do get killed. And then, like I said, it's a little more cynical than the 50s one, because you find out that it's actually this top secret government project. And they're basically, once the meteor lands and the blob gets out, the scientists, or at least the main guy, he's kind of more the bad guy. Like, all the other government people are like, okay, because once that guy gets killed, they're like, fuck that guy. Like, they just frag him, because they didn't really want to go along with it. Because I think that he was the one that came up with it, and then when it crash landed in this town, I think he was basically one of those let's just see what happens type of situation. And they're like, these are all people that are going to get eaten by the blob. That's probably not good. And he's just like, no, it's going to be fine. So there was like definitely like a government conspiracy type, angle to it as well, which wasn't in the 50s one. But that said, it still maintains that kind of, like you said, a little bit of optimism, or I don't know. It's just like a very likable, very enjoyable movie, despite how dark it is and despite how gory it is. Now, I will say, like, the end scene with the crazy preacher who...
He saved some of it. Yeah.
He saved some of it, like, from the freezer, and then, like, builds his own cult around it, essentially. Yeah. And it almost seems, the last scene, it almost kind of seems like they're setting up a sequel. Although Frank Darabont said, no, that wasn't his intention. Like, he's like, no, I just wanted to have this little thing at the end. But it definitely does seem like they're setting up a sequel. Although I don't think they never made one. But
they've done well.
No, well, this movie didn't do well. Yeah. Which, listen to this. This sucks. So this movie, as awesome as this movie is, because I love this movie, and watching it again last night just cemented my love for it, because I hadn't seen it for a really long time. This movie cost anywhere between... so Wikipedia says 10 million. IMDb says 19 million. I'm not sure which one of those are correct. Yeah, that's a very large difference. I'm not really sure which one of those is correct. But it doesn't really matter because it only made 8 million at the box office.
That's a flop.
Now, yeah, big time. And it could have been, I mean, there probably were a lot of reasons. The Frank Darabont and like some of the director and stuff said, well, they didn't think that it was promoted very well. Another thing, too, was that this movie came out at right around the same time. I mean, its opening weekend, it opened 8th. But this opened right around the same time, I think, as Die Hard, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Big. I mean, it's like all Cocktail, that Tom Cruise movie. Yeah. There's like, so all the Beaches, I think, came out around the same time. So there were all these like massive, what are now classic movies, all came out like right around the same time as this. So this just got creamed. And it's really sad because, I mean, it's such an excellent movie, and particularly one that's like a remake. You know, like we were saying, like, you know, the 80s was really the heyday of 50s remakes that were way, way better than the originals. And this is way, way better than the original.
It's a good flick. It holds up.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
It definitely does. I mean, I still love the special effects. Look fucking great. Like all the gore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just fucking fantastic.
Has a good American Spielbergian fucking scope to it. It's just a good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Danny Rolling Goso says the original has that cool, catchy song. I will give it that. I do like the original Blob song, but I think that that's maybe why people see it as like so cheesy, is because that song is just like, you know, it's the little Blob song. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, a cute space alien, Jujubee coming from space. You know what I mean? Whereas this one is just very much like, no, it's going to eat the whole entire town.
Yeah, sci-fi.
And eat off your face.
Sci-fi of the 50s, you know what I mean, was bottom of the barrel. They marketed it to kids.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a good move. You know, there were very few sci-fi movies of the 50s that were respectable. War of the Worlds, Forbidden Planet, Day the Earth Stood Still. That's probably about it. There might be another one there. Most of them kind of sucked.
Well, they were just kind of cheapy.
Blob was pretty good. But
and I mean, I was watching something earlier that said, you know, 50s monster movies, like a lot of times it'd be like 5% like cool scenes of the monster attacking somebody, like the giant tarantula or whatever, and then the rest of it'd just be like dudes in suits or lab coats standing around yakking about
talking on the phone. Talking on the phone from their offices.
I think it was Red Letter Media, because I was watching a thing earlier because they did a 45-minute talk about the Blob. And they were saying, the 50s movies, they said, well, maybe they did that on purpose because they knew that, like, in the 50s, everybody would be making out the whole time.
Yeah, could have been.
Like, through the whole movie. And then just like, oh, here's, like, the 2 minutes of cool monster action. And then they just go back to making out.
Remember Creature from the Black Lagoon was pretty good. That was 50s.
Yeah. Creature from the Black Lagoon was earlier. But they did a second one, Revenge of the Creature.
All right.
In... early 50s, I think, which is actually not bad.
Yeah.
It's actually not bad.
I remember
it's not as good as the original, but it's still pretty good.
I remember the original being pretty good, but it's not 50s.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the Creature from the
40s,
Black...
right?
I think it was 40. Oh,
Maybe.
might have been late 30s. Shit, now
No,
I can't...
not that old.
I don't think it was that old. I can't even remember. It might have been 40s. Maybe, I don't know. I can't remember now.
I don't think
I could be totally wrong. Yeah, Cheryl said, "Wow, big flop." Yeah, unfortunately. But like I said, it doesn't have anything to do with the quality of the movie. I just think it was because, one, there were so many other big movies that came out right around the same time. But I don't know. I don't know if it wasn't marketed correctly or if it's just nobody was in the mood for it, or I don't really know. And that's like really a shame because this is like a really, really good horror flick. Slasher Fred. One of my favorite 80s movies is the classic horror Child's Play. Yeah, I really like that one too. Did we see like the remake just recently? That was all right. I mean,
the remake wasn't that good.
It's okay. I mean, it was okay, but it was unnecessary.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like that's why, and that's why I kind of like this run of 80s remakes of 50s movies that actually like modernized and improved upon them because they were good ideas that were, not really that well done back then. If you're going to do a remake, don't take something that was like awesome the first time, like Halloween or Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and remake that. Why remake that? Remake something that kind of sucked the first time, but was a good idea. I don't have a problem with it then. Don't remake something good. Why bother?
There's a couple exceptions. The remake of Night of the Living Dead was pretty good. But it was just another zombie movie. It wasn't this same movie.
Yeah.
And I actually liked the original better. But
I do as well. But the 1990 one, you're talking about the 1990, like the Tom Savini directed one?
It was pretty good too. But I consider
it's pretty good.
I consider it to be a different zombie movie though.
Yeah, I mean it's similar, but it's not entirely the same.
It's not really the same.
Yeah. But so I've said that for a long time. It's just I've seen like zillions of movies that were made from the 50s to the 70s that were really cool ideas, but the people didn't have didn't have enough budget, or they didn't really know what they were doing, or it was kind of like technically not all that good. And it's like, but it was a good story, or there was something like good about it, and somebody could totally remake that if you wanted to do a remake. Shit, I've been saying this a long time because remember we talked about Manos, The Hands of Fate, which is an awful movie, although it's like pretty entertaining in its awfulness. But I still maintain that that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody did that right, that would be really creepy, I think. I think it's a creepy idea. They just he didn't have the money or the technical know-how to pull that off, but it was a good idea. So, if somebody wanted to remake it, I don't know why nobody has nowadays. Maybe the original is like good enough for everybody. Camp Guy says, I got Blob stuff in my freezer and refrigerator. Shamarlo Scott says, Ghostface is my favorite slasher, so I'm guessing the Scream ones. And what else? He
was also talking about them doing a Hellraiser remake. He says it's going to be good. I doubt it. I didn't like the first ones.
I like the first Hellraiser. The second one was all right. The other ones after that, like, diminishing returns.
Yeah.
But
I didn't even really like the first one.
If you guys ever seen the original Fright Night, I love the original Fright Night. Actually, we talked about it a while back. That's actually one of my favorite movies from the 80s. Easily one of my favorite horror comedies. Just really, really, that's a really, really fun movie. They remade that too, but that also the remake wasn't that good.
Hellraiser was cool back in the day, but only in the scenes that had the damn Cenobites in it. The rest of the shit was just kind of like a 50s movie, a lot of talking. And, some people like them. They're kind of like weird romances. I guess they were kind of weird for the days. But I saw them recently. We watched them, and I was like, these are kind of boring. But it's just because, your threshold has changed a lot since then.
Well, when Clive Barker first came out, you didn't really have a lot of mainstreamed stuff that was that extreme.
Right.
You didn't have like a lot of this weird like S&M.
Yeah, it's BDSM's
over the top. So. Now it's everyone's just like yawn. But back in the 80s when he wrote it, I mean that was like nobody was doing that. It was like really subversive. So
what was better, a better series and just better movies overall was the whole Phantasm series. That just got better as it went. They were all good, and that was just better series than Hellraiser by far.
Fourth Row Down says, I'd like to see a remake of Q the Winged Serpent. Now, see, something like that. I do like the original Q the Winged Serpent, but...
As a trip, yeah.
I mean, you could make something really good out of that. See, there's like tons. There's tons of movies. There are even like forgotten ones that you could remake that you could really do something good with, because there's like a lot of really good ideas in there. Most of the time, it's just, the acting was bad or they didn't have the money or whatever. It wasn't necessarily because the story was a stupid idea.
I was talking last night what somebody needs to do is go back and get all the fucking everything from Superman 4 and fucking fix that movie and re-edit it. There's enough shot from Superman 4 where you could fix that. Superman 4 was going to be good, man, but they fucked it up. They cut 45 minutes of it out. Fucking Canon Studios was fucking falling apart in the middle of the production. People were stealing money and running, and they were lucky to get that movie in the can. Superman 4 could be fixed with modern technology.
Somebody asked us to do a show about Canon and other kind of like indie movie studios, which actually might be sort of interesting, to get into. Jeffy Art says, does anyone remember the movie The Stuff? I absolutely do. Actually, I watched that one not too long ago. Yeah. That's kind of like more... It's a horror movie, but it's more like a satire. It's like a satire of consumerism. Yeah. I love the scene where where the stuff like comes out his mouth and his fucking mouth is all this big and shit like that. It looks fake, but I don't know. There's something like really iconic I like about it. Somebody asked about Attack of the Killer Tomatoes also. We'll get around to that one eventually. Although I think
Brandon's terrible.
It is terrible. Brandon Tenold just did it.
Yeah.
That was the latest one that he put up, was Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Somebody said they liked the Friday the 13th reboot. I didn't love it. You know what though? I didn't mind the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake from 2004. That was okay. It was better than I was expecting.
With Friday the 13th, only the first 3 were any good.
That's true.
4. I think.
No,
there was 3 was the last one that I liked. Maybe,
no, there was.
Might have been 4.
Was it 5 or 6 that was good? One of those. The one with the little Corey in it.
Oh yeah.
Was that 5 or 6? That one was good.
Yeah, I get them.
What was it? A New Beginning? Maybe that was 5. I can't remember. I get them all confused. Yeah. I think I've seen all of them over the years.
I remember the first 3 are the ones that stand out for me. And then after that, for some reason, it started to fall apart. The second one was the best one. Actually.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you on that one. But like I said, I think it was the 5th one was actually really decent too. But there were a couple like turds in there also. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I've watched them all because it's not my favorite horror franchise though. I like slashers, but it's not my favorite subgenre. I'm more like a haunted house type.
Remaking Pumpkinhead. No, the original's good enough. You also have to. One of the things you got to remember about Pumpkinhead is, go back and try to tell me where Pumpkinhead is taking place, because you'll never figure that out. I don't know where that is. What year is that? The cars are from the 80s, but who the hell's living in a shack in the 80s, up in the fucking woods of California? There weren't any hillbillies in the 80s, not living like it was 1920 and 1930. Just, it's a fictional world that it's taking place in.
Well, I always just thought of it, and we reviewed it, and we talked about this exact thing. I said, to me, it just struck me as like a fairy tale.
It's a fairy tale.
I really wasn't worried about where it was taking place.
Because it's kind of a fairy tale, rebooting it wouldn't really matter, because it's kind of taking place outside of space and time anyway. If you were going to, I don't advocate necessarily remaking Pumpkinhead, because I think it was good the first time, but if you were going to remake it, I would advocate going in a more folk horror direction. Like, play up the folk horror, play up the fairy tale aspect of it. Yeah. Not to the extent of, not like crazy, but I think you could do something with that. You'd have to put it in the past, too. Yeah. Yeah, Cheryl says leave Pumpkinhead alone. Honestly, I really would not. Yeah. Kyle's talking about the remake of Rabid. I still want to see that. I've heard mixed reviews about it, but I'm actually really curious. I'll get around to watching it one of these days. Let's see. Night of the Comet. Remake The Sentinel. You know what? That might be a good one to do, because I really like
the original Sentinel. We did a review of that quite a while back. But it had a lot of problems too. But it's a good idea. Again, so I think that maybe... I'm surprised nobody's remade that one. I feel like that one's kind of like a popular cult classic.
Surprised nobody's tried to remake The Keep.
Yeah, see, there's a lot of kind of like lesser known ones like that are cool ideas.
Yeah.
That you could do. And I don't know why. I mean, I know why they keep doing the big budget, because everybody knows them.
Yeah.
They want everybody to come say, everybody's heard of Nightmare on Elm Street. Everybody's heard of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Not, only horror nerds have heard about The Keep or The Sentinel or whatever.
Yeah, and why remake it?
Yeah.
It has to happen in World War II. And then the fans of The Keep, it'd be hard for that movie to make new fans.
Yeah.
It's the wrong generation. So it's best just to talk about the old movie and go back and look at it again. I'd like to remake The Island. That's a fucking great movie. With fucking Michael Caine. About the damn inbred pirates out on the fucking island off the coast of Florida here. That was a fucking great movie. A lot of it was from a book. They cut a lot of it out. You could remake that. That'd be cool as shit. But the problem is that what made The Island so great was Michael Caine. Michael Caine made that movie great. You'd have to get somebody to really carry that. You could remake The Hand with Michael Caine. But, Oliver Stone, how are you going to fucking follow up Oliver Stone?
That's what I mean. I kind of feel like... And that movie's good the way it is.
Just the way it is.
I don't think it needs to be modernized or remade or anything. I'm talking more about movies that... And it doesn't even necessarily have to be something that, like, everybody knows. It's just that, well, I want to make a movie and I can't think of an original idea, so I want to remake something. But just, like... there's a lot of fertile ground out there that you can like pick from if you must remake something.
Look at Mandy. That's an all original movie. That motherfucker's badass.
Yeah, I mean,
and then Nicolas Cage will work on some. He'll fucking do some crazy ass shit. Some of it fucking great. Some of it fucking terrible. But he's gonna cage the fuck out in every fucking movie. He doesn't phone it in. You're gonna get your money's worth if fucking Nick Cage is in it. He's gonna cage. Cage will cage. He's a caging motherfucker. He's going to do it. What was the one where he's in Chuck E. Cheese's, didn't say a word through the whole movie?
Willy's Wonderland.
Willy's Wonderland. Great movie.
Yeah, I had a good time. I had a good time with that one.
Color Out of Space was pretty good. Some people didn't think it worked. I thought it did.
It had a couple little things I didn't like about it, but overall I thought it was a really good adaptation.
Yeah.
Kyle says a remake of God Told Me To has potential. Now, see... That's another one, because I really did like that movie, but the concept of it is so cool that I think that could totally be modernized, and that might work out. Jeffy Art asks, has anyone seen Lamora, A Child's Tale of the Supernatural? I have, but it was a very long time ago, and I've actually really been wanting to revisit that because it keeps like coming up when I'm looking around for other things, and I'm like, oh yeah, I should rewatch that. Slasher Fred says, I sure would love to do a remake of Jaws. Which I guess he's being sarcastic, but yeah, Danny Rowling says there's a Valentine's Day slasher from 2001 called Valentine. Actually, I think they just added that on Hulu, I want to say. Because I was thinking about maybe we could do a matinee on it. Because I remember that being okay. I remember it being okay. All right, so are we done talking about the Blob? Yeah. Okay, so I mean, we mostly talked about the Blob, but yeah. So if you haven't seen it, where did we see it? We saw it on Amazon Prime, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can rent it for $2.99, $3.99, however much it was. But yeah, I mean, if you like really gory 80s horror, this is like a really, really good one. And I feel like a lot of people don't really talk about it, even when they talk about good 80s remake of 50s stuff, like I said, like The Fly or The Thing. This absolutely is up there with those. So yeah, check it out. And we're going to be back tomorrow night for our regular show, which is going to be about fast food restaurant massacres. So it's going to be a little bit of a bummer, but that's what won the polls, so that's what we're going to do. So yeah, thanks everybody for dropping by this afternoon, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow evening. Bye.